So another day and another Royal Rumble to talk about. Today I'm going to talk about the 1994 Royal Rumble and the Royal Rumble match that had a unique finish. Unique is sometimes good, and unique sometimes is not good. But unique is always unique. It is the one and only time that we had this exact finish at a Royal Rumble. But we'll get to that in a couple of moments here. So as far as this show here, yeah, when I talked about in the last one about that roster transition, you were still definitely undergoing that major roster transition. Hogan was no longer with the company at all, and yeah, no Warrior. It yeah, sometimes it is a little tough to go back and watch this era of the WWF for me because this was a time where my interest in the product definitely waned. Yes, I still watched and I still paid attention, but it really just wasn't the same, and I just didn't care nearly as much. You opened up with Tatanka beating Bam Bam Bigelow, where it wasn't even supposed to originally be this match. It was supposed to be with Ludwig Borga instead of Bam Bam, and he was supposed to have an ankle injury, but unfortunately Ludwig Borga would never return. Don't know if I should say unfortunately or fortunately for anybody else that ever had to watch him work, but it was interesting watching the opening match. It gave me an appreciation for just how good Luna Vachon was, and the fact that the WWE inducted a Sonny into their Hall of Fame before a Luna Vachon to me is a complete and total outrage and joke, and I don't back off of that. Luna made everybody pretty much that she was involved with better. Added layers, added dimension, was able to get heat on herself, but just as importantly, get more heat on the person that she was managing at all times. I love Luna Vachon, and I miss her tremendously, and I think it's a crying shame that she's not in the WWE Hall of Fame compared to some of the other people that are. Then you had the Quebecers. Excuse me. You had the Quebecers with Johnny Polo going against Bret Hart and Owen Hart for the Tag Team Championship. Now, of course, the big deal here was trying to continue to advance the kind of Cain and Abel storyline between Bret and Owen Hart. Yeah, Raven as Johnny Polo. Anybody can say what they want about Raven, and there are a lot of good things to say about him, some bad things to say about him, but the one thing you could say is the fucking WWF made him Johnny Polo. And you wonder why the WWF struggled at this period of time. Johnny Polo would eventually go to ECW and become Raven, and the rest is history. But here he was Johnny Polo. Oh, God. A really good tag match, though. Really good tag match. One of my favorite, excuse me, WrestleMania matches of all time will always be WrestleMania 10, Bret versus Owen, especially because the better Hart brother won that night. And that's right, I said the better Hart brother. Owen was better than Bret. And you know who's the ultimate authority on that? Bret Hart. And he said his own brother was better than him. So you know what? I don't care about the titles. I don't care about this or that or any damn thing else. If it's good enough for Bret Hart, it's good enough for me. Damn it, it should be good enough for you. If you don't like it, Owen's better than Bret. Eat shit. That's what I got to say about that. But a really good tag match. And another solid match, at least, was the Intercontinental Championship match. Razor Ramon successfully defending his belt against Erwin R. Shyster, Mike Rotunda, IRS. And, IRS, what a great heel gimmick that was. Just continually talking about people and paying their taxes and not paying their taxes, and the fact that we should be raising taxes. I love the IRS gimmick. I really do. It's one of my favorite undercard, mid-card gimmicks of all time. What a great heel character. Have somebody going around with the initials of IRS telling everybody they need to pay their taxes. Everybody hates paying taxes. What an ingenious heel concept it really was. And we get to a kind of wild and crazy match, a casket match for the WWF Championship, with Yokozuna defending his belt successfully against The Undertaker. And one thing I always liked about Yokozuna is when they brought in Jim Cornette to be his American spokesperson, he had two managers. I don't know if that would work today, but back in 1994, that shit was fucking awesome. He had Mr. Fuji and he had Jim Cornette. He had two Hall of Fame managers. It doesn't get much better than that. And then, of course, Undertaker had his own Hall of Fame manager in Paul Bearer. And the way this whole match went out, this is something that if you found out Vince Russo book, you'd be like, oh, this is overbooked Vince Russo shit and blah, blah, blah. Well, they wanted to make sure you had a monster in Yokozuna, but you wanted to protect a monster in The Undertaker, but you also knew he was going to have to miss some time due to some back problems. So they had like the entire fucking roster come out and help Yokozuna finally put Undertaker in the casket. If you like wild, crazy, unpredictable, Dusty Rhodes types of finishes, this is a match for you. If you don't, this probably isn't the match for you. But then we get to the actual Royal Rumble match itself. And, yeah. One thing of note here is the fact that Diesel shined here, even though he was working as a heel. This was maybe the beginnings of planting the seed that he was going to be a hero down the road. At one point in time, you had Diesel eliminate 7 straight wrestlers. He went on a roll. He went on a tear. He was definitely a highlight of this pay-per-view and the highlight, I would argue, of this Royal Rumble match. No question about it. And to me, it's simple things like that, where you have a guy, even though he's working as a heel, you're trying to plant the seed of him being a babyface. You have him go on a big, impressive streak. People like to see that. They like to see dominance, even if they pretend to hate it. They like to see that type of shit. They like to see a new, fresh face dominate and impose his will. It's fucking awesome to watch. And this was awesome to watch. This was, at least. But then we get to the finish of this Rumble match. And, yeah. I always thought this finish was stupid. 20 years later, I still think this finish is stupid. And, here's my thing. If you were going to have co-winners of the Royal Rumble, why would you have 2 different title matches at WrestleMania 10? Why not just have one big triple threat match? Maybe this was a new foreign concept to Vince McMahon at the time. I get that. I grant you that. But why not go there? Why not do something that would truly have been memorable and remarkable and different by having Luger versus Brett versus Yokozuna for the belt at WrestleMania 10? Frankly, I would have much rather have seen that than what actually did happen, which was Luger versus Yokozuna earlier in the show, and then Brett versus Yoko in the main event of the show after he'd already wrestled a long match earlier in the night and lost to his brother Owen Hart. He lost to his brother, yet at the end of the night managed to beat Yokozuna to become the champion. And keep in mind with Luger here, this was at a time where they had repackaged the Narcissist and they were bringing him in on the Lex Express. He was going to be the replacement for Hulk Hogan. He was going to be the all-American good guy, the red, white, and blue star-spangled awesome son of a bitch. They had him come back on the 4th of July in 93 and body slam Yokozuna on the aircraft carrier. They were doing all this shit, having him tour with the Lex Express. They were trying to really get him over and make him the new piece and slice of Americana. And they couldn't even go all the way with him here by just having him win the Royal Rumble. And then you had Bret Hart, who had already been WWF champion, who was arguably the most over with the crowd at that particular time. And you couldn't even get all the way behind him and have him be the champion. To me, this finish was stupid. It reeked of indecisiveness, not being sure where to go, not having any confidence in one guy or the other, saying, oh, we have some confidence in one, we have some confidence in the other, but we really don't have any confidence in either one of them. The finish just to come across very, very poorly, and, it's just one of these Rumble matches that I look back at and I say, you could have went with one guy or the other. This, to me, was a clear example of, yes, it was unique. It's the only time they've ever done this finish of having co-winners at the Royal Rumble. But unique is not always necessarily a good thing. And this is one example of that to me. And that's the way I look at this pay-per-view is I'll always remember it, even with matches like Razor versus IRS and the Quebecers versus Bret and Owen, is ultimately I remember that Luger and Bret Hart were the co-champions of the Royal Rumble match, and I thought that was kind of lame. And overall, at the end of the day, I feel like this show was kind of lame. And again, kind of represents at the time how it was kind of hard for me to go back and watch some of these old WWF shows because at the time back in the mid-90s. Even though I still watched the products, even though I still kept up with the product, I just really wasn't as interested. I just really didn't care as much. And at the time, when you talk about Bret Hart, he did not appeal to me at all. Even being a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid at that time. I never got it with Bret Hart. Wasn't for me, and he was one of the top guys. And here in '94, after the Rumble, you sat there and you had Taker gone for several months, and then you had oh god, another reason why Taker's streak should never end. Undertaker versus Undertaker at SummerSlam '94. Oh Jesus, who's the real Undertaker? Enough, enough. That was 1994 WWF. Oh, bad.